the gap, standing for Jesus, standing in the gap for family and friends, standing in the gap, one love for all, so we all can make it in.
There's a certain part of this ministry that we dedicate to current events. God so loved the world that he gave his only son to die for it. And he asked us to live in the midst of it. And we have to live in the midst of it means we have to understand it. So we have to understand the current events, what's going on, that type of thing. We've dedicated a portion of our broadcast to keeping you up to date on current event. We call this portion the Gap News. And Marvel is in charge of that. She has been working on that. And I'm not sure what she has going, of course, because I do my part, she does her part. So I'm turning this over to Miss Marvel.
I haven't been gone that long, have I? We have an excellent Gap News today. You know, last week there was a horrific event in Baltimore, and the Francis Lee Scott Lee Bridge collapsed. We're going to look into this a little bit and see what kind of responses came after that.
The Francis Scott Key Bridge?
What did I say?
I'm not sure.
That breaking news that you started with, Matt, overnight in Baltimore, Maryland. A portion of the Francis Scott Key Bridge has collapsed. You see what happened down into the harbor. That large boat collided with the bridge around 1:30 this morning. That just sent the span rippling down into those freezing waters below. Authorities are trying to rescue at least 7 people who were doing overnight work on the bridge. They're believed to have been tossed into the waves. Fire crews say several vehicles hit the water, including one the size of a tractor trailer. Hoping people were able to get out of their vehicles when they got into the water. Divers have been dispatched into the water for what is now being called a dire mass casualty incident. I have chills thinking about the people who were in those vehicles and the workers.
And now the rescue that's underway.
And so we're going to think good thoughts and send prayers and bring you updates as soon as they come in.
Shame on those people who want to make something out of this that isn't there. They have this boogeyman philosophy, and if it's black or brown, it's something that they've got a target on. I just think that is just totally uncalled for at a time like this.
That was Maryland Congressman Kweise Mfume last night on this very show, talking about the rampant conspiracies being hawked by the right about Tuesday's tragic bridge collapse in Baltimore. It has been a grab bag of right-wing grievances, barely coded racism, and flat-out lies. Noted Jewish space lasers and QAnon conspiracist Marjorie Taylor Greene suggested the disaster was the result of an intentional attack, perhaps by the space lasers. But the most idiotic and racist theories had to do with their newest boogeyman, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. A Republican congressional candidate in Florida tweeted that DEI did this. And a right-wing blue check account that's been boosted by Elon Musk in the past just blew straight past the dog whistling, tweeting to its 276,000 followers, quote, Baltimore's DEI mayor commenting on the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge. It's going to get so much worse. Prepare accordingly. The post included a clip of Baltimore's black mayor, Brandon Scott. I cannot believe I have to say this. Brandon Scott was elected with 70% of the vote in 2020 in a city that is 61% black. So by right-wing logic, a diversity hire would have been a white man, which of course is what they want. Only the white Christian men may have the things. And at this point, it's evident what they mean by DEI, right? Okay, it means black people. It's the reason the right complained about critical race theory. It's not fashionable to be openly racist anymore in America, unlike what they call the good old days. So referring to a black mayor as a DEI mayor gets the point across, right? So fellas, why not just say what you mean? You can't stand black people. We get it. You've been heard. One of the busiest in the country, 11th largest overall. It employs more than 15,000 people and more than 139,000 indirect jobs. And it's the #1 port in the country for the import and export of automobiles and farm and construction machinery, a top importer of sugar, and second in the nation for export of coal, and not just coal for black people, Republicans, coal for everybody. Joining me now is Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott. I will allow you, Mayor Scott, if you choose to do so, to respond to the tomfoolery and attacks on you for having the nerve to be black and also a mayor.
Well, I think, listen, I know, and we all know, and you know very well, that black men and young black men in particular have been the boogeyman for those who are racist and think that only straight, wealthy white men should have a say in anything. We've been the boogeyman from them since the first day they brought us to this country. And what they mean by DEI, in my opinion, is duly elected incumbent. We know what they want to say, but they don't have the courage to say the N-word. And the fact that I don't believe in their untruthful and wrong ideology, and I am very proud of my heritage and who I am and where I come from, scares them, because me being at my position means that their way of thinking, their way of life of being comfortable and suffering, and while everyone else suffers, is going to be at risk, and they should be afraid, because that's my purpose in life.
And by the way, you know, the coded racism, before we even knew the nationalities of the men, Maria Bartiromo was out there talking about open borders and trying to somehow signal that they wanted to go after the brown people too, because of course that is their other target. We know that the men who were doing this hard construction work overnight, trying to fix the potholes on this bridge, working very hard, were Latino. And so that's now on the table too. We know that this ship, which came from Singapore, was piloted by a very heroic crew from India whose Mayday call saved lives, not maybe saved lives, but did. So this is a full-throated attack. But this is also what America is. It is people of multiple races who do the hard work to make America work and literally make it work. Talk about the importance of this port and how quickly you believe it will be back up and working.
Well, first I have to talk about those lives that we lost. Those folks came to this country to fulfill the American dream, the dream that they say should exist for everyone, but they really mean just for them. They were working, filling potholes in the middle of the night, so all of us used that bridge could transit, had better transit. This port is one of the most important, not just in the U.S., but in the world. And these folks that depend on these jobs, we are going to be working very quickly alongside and following the lead of our federal government, our state government, supporting in every way we can to get this port open back up. But we have to do that safely, in the right way, to make sure that nothing else happens in the getting it back up and working. We're going to do that each and every day. Everybody is working here together. We're ignoring all the conspiracy theorists, everyone who's playing bridge engineer at home, who's never even taken a class on engineering, and understanding that what this is about is showing the world once and again that Baltimore can't be broken, that our spirit is strong, and we will rebuild together and honor those who we lost.
We are grateful in this country to the Latino workers who do the hard work. They are on these construction sites all over this country doing the work that you cannot compel a lot of Americans to do, the back-breaking work that we don't even have enough gratitude to give to them. So our deepest condolences to the families of those 6 who are gone and are lost, and they were lost doing the work for us to make our country better and to make our economy stronger. God bless them. And to anybody who has anything negative to say about this mayor or those people, we know who you are. We see you. We see what you mean when you say DEI. We get it. Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott, thank you so much. Much appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Asking Congress to pay the full cost of rebuilding the bridge.
Everyone, including Congress, should be asking only one question, and they're going to be asked the question by your delegation. How can we help? How can we solve that problem? My administration is committed, absolutely committed, to ensuring that the parties responsible for this tragedy pay to repair the damage and be held accountable to the fullest extent the law will allow.
Maryland Governor Wes Moore was with President Biden today, and he joins us now. Governor, thanks for being with us, and welcome back to the NewsHour.
Thank you so much. Great to be with you.
So the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers announced a timeline to partially open that channel in Baltimore by the end of April and fully reopen it by the end of May. Still, though, what challenges and obstacles remain that could get in the way of that ambitious timeline?
Well, this is arguably one of the most significant maritime tragedies that we have had in recent history. Because what we have here is a situation, in addition to the 6 tragic lives that were lost, and we continue to have their families in our prayers. We also have a situation that's unprecedented, a situation where you have a ship that is the size, literally the size of the Eiffel Tower and the weight of the Washington Monument, that's now sitting in the middle of the Patapsco River and has the Key Bridge, an iconic bridge that's been around as long as I've been alive, that's now sitting on top of it. You have about 27,000 tons of debris that's now sitting in the water. And so how to navigate this and do this is a remarkably complicated operation. You know, we've been grateful that we've been working hand in hand with the Army Corps of Engineers, with the Coast Guard, with the Navy Soup Salve, with the Maryland State Police divers. So this has been a full coordination of federal, state, and local assets. And while we're thankful that the Army Corps of Engineers has put together an aggressive timeline, we know that it's going to take all hands on deck. We know it's going to continue to be a 24/7 operation, and we know we're going to continue putting together all assets necessary in order for us to provide comfort to the families, reopen the channels, make sure we're taking care of our people, and getting the Key Bridge rebuilt.
Okay, so a horrible tragedy happened. You know, they're still trying to figure out what happened to the ship, why it lost power, but when it lost power, then the rudder stopped working. They couldn't steer the ship. These courageous um, crew members and captain of the ship called a mayday, and that enabled the people that, I guess, the highway patrol or somebody, to cut off traffic. And it was 1:30 in the morning, but they cut off traffic on the bridge, so they were able to get the cars, prevent the cars from going on the bridge, and then of course perishing as well. Unfortunately, there were 8 workers on the bridge. 6 of them have perished. And then, now all of this, it was an accident. They've already done the investigation. It was an accident. It wasn't terrorism or anything like that. And then the response that comes out, because the mayor of Baltimore is black and the governor of Maryland is black, and blame it on the black people? What do you think about that, honey?
Well, I was just thinking about Micah 6:8. When it comes to something like that, act do justly. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of justice in the reaction to that. And the first response, of course, should be the lives of those who they could save, and the families of those whose loved ones they could not save.
Mm-hmm.
And then the response should be, okay, how do we make this better? Let's get this thing worked out, and let's move on. Especially, as you know, it's an accident. I mean, if it was shown that it was not an accident, then there should be justice steps in at that point.
Exactly.
If it was negligence on anybody's part, justice steps in at that point in time. But that's justice. But there's also something called mercy. And so when you go off and you start blaming it on things that are ridiculous and on people who didn't have anything to do with it and all that kind of thing, you are not acting justly, and you're not exercising mercy against the people who actually may have had something to do with that. So the and walking humbly with God. There was no God in that when you blaming black people for something they had nothing to do with. And so it's unfortunately it's a matter of current events we see over and over and over again. And so we have to deal with it. And how do we deal with it? Walk humbly with God.
I want to point out something else too. You remember a few years ago, a bridge fell down in Minnesota, and Congress acted swiftly and unanimously to fund the repair of that bridge. And do you know that our current Congress is talking about, well, maybe we won't fund it. And, of course, the president put across some funding that I guess he has some discretionary funding to get this started. But we're going to have some legislation to fund the rest of the repair of this bridge. And some people are balking about that.
The wild thing about that is that when you cut off your nose to spite your face and all that kind of thing,
Oh, yes.
because that port imports more goods and all that kind of thing. It's a large amount of that, and that would affect the whole country. That doesn't affect Baltimore and Maryland, and so it's crazy. But you know what? As we talk about the spiritual warfare, it's just another part of spiritual warfare that's going on.
Yeah.
And God's still on the throne.
Yes. Just to give you an example, auto parts and farm equipment parts are imported into the country. So, that farmer out in Iowa is being affected. We export oil through that port. So that's everybody's oil. Just, it boggles my mind that I don't know, that people would be like that. And I'm looking, I don't see anybody making any comments from our online group, but please feel free if you have any comments. And I don't have anything else to say. I just am really just baffled.
All right. Well, I tell you what, current events, we keep you up on them. If you didn't know,
Now you know.